you're not a Ugandan, you can get a lease for a period of 5 years to up to 99 years. Now 99 is the maximum. And all this is subject to the conditions that are laid out in the lease. Hi guys, Zuria Nagadia Karma here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. If you've been here before, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you. On here, you'll find lots of motivation, legal and business tips, and all of this combined are intended to make you and I improve our personal growth and make some money in the process. So, continuing with our series or discussion on land ownership, today we're talking about leases. Yes, and these are most common, especially with our brothers and sisters who are not citizens of Uganda, who are not Ugandan. This is the only form of land that you can hold in Uganda. You can only hold a lease in Uganda if you're not a Ugandan. And the law defines citizens and non-citizens in many different ways, but as long as you're not born here, as long as you've not received, like you've not been granted Ugandan citizenship, then you cannot hold any other land apart from a lease. And then if, for example, if we talk about companies, if a company is owned, if shares are majorly owned by people who are not Ugandan, then that company also can only hold a lease or leases. And before we get into all this, what is a lease? How do you understand a lease, and how does the law in Uganda define a lease? And a lease is basically granting ownership, not ownership. A lease is granting exclusive possession of land to another person or to another party for a specified period of time in exchange of rent. I hope that's clear. So basically, in leasehold land, the land in question or the land being discussed or the subject matter of that particular transaction should be granted exclusively. Possession of that land should be granted exclusively to the person to be known as the lessee by the lessor, and the lessor is the owner of the land for a specified period of time, and this is in exchange for rent, and it's also on specified terms. So leases are usually granted for a particular purpose, and that purpose has to be fulfilled. For things that you can use a lease for, if you have like a leasehold certificate of title, and I'm talking about land right now, land that was granted by ULC, or land, former public land, and basically you have a leasehold certificate of title, then you can mortgage this, you can sell the same, you can sublease the same, but all this is subject to the landlord knowing whatever is done on a lease, whatever rights are granted to a lessor by the particular lease in question. All these rights are subject to consent. Whatever you have to do with the land after this should be with consent of the lessor or your landlord. For example, if you want to sublease the same and give someone else exclusive right, exclusive possession of maybe part of the land which you leased, then such sublease should only be through consent of the lessor. I hope that makes sense, because that's very important for you to know. And then acquiring a lease is very easy, because someone can grant a lease on Milo land as well. Someone can grant a lease on freehold land as well, and all these leases, all these rights that are granted, a lease granted to someone who is not a Ugandan cannot be for less than 5 years. So if you're not a Ugandan, you can at least remember my birds last time. Well, here they are again. As soon as I start recording, they join in. So let's just go on. Please ignore them. Like I was saying, if you're not a Ugandan, you can get a lease for a period of 5 years to up to 99 years. Now 99 is the maximum, and all this is subject to the conditions that are laid out in the lease. All this is subject to the conditions laid out in the lease, to payment of the specified rent, during the specified period. And this is an agreement like any other. And if you breach the terms of the agreement, then the necessary recourse will definitely be made by whoever is aggrieved by such breach. Now, how does one acquire a lease in Uganda? First of all, you just have to identify. So, for example, if it's on former public land, if there is any land that is still existing in Uganda right now, and you believe if there's any land that's still existing right now in Uganda and you believe it's not owned by anyone, and you believe this land is free, it's vacant, and no one is laying a claim to it, then you can make an application to the Uganda Land Commission, and you file definitely different forms. If you've been maybe on this land and it's really not owned by anyone, if this land is not claimed by anyone, and you'll be surprised that there's still a lot of land like that in the country that is unclaimed. And once this happens, if it's there, you just go present the same to Uganda Land Commission. There's some conditions, there's some forms you have to fill. You have to submit deed plans of this particular land that you're talking about, and then make payments of the necessary fees. Then the commission will sit and decide if they're granting you this land or not. If it's for purposes of maybe someone who is not a Ugandan, or even how does one get a lease in Uganda, or if you want to, especially for those out of the country and do not know how, I actually have a video where I explained how to acquire land in Uganda. But just to recap, to avoid any fraud, you have to be sure to carry out your due diligence. You have to find, as soon as you get in touch with someone who has this land, who is ready to sell to you, who is ready to grant you a lease on their land, be sure to carry out due diligence of this land. Go to Ministry of Lands and find out who actually owns this land. And this due diligence can be done by lawyers. I would recommend that you find a lawyer in the country to help you carry out this due diligence on this particular land. After identifying the land, then you can go for a site visit before getting into any agreements. Go for a site visit. You have to engage a surveyor so that they tell you the value of the land. If you know the value of the land, then you can have proper discussions while knowing the market value of the particular land that you're interested in. And then be sure to use like renowned companies. There are companies that are into real estate and are into property development and land in particular. So, and these companies are registered. So there are a lot of ways that due diligence can be done on a particular company. And before you make any payments or anything, engage a lawyer. Find a lawyer and engage them to help you verify the ownership of this land, and help you verify from the neighbors where after a site visit, or even before, to verify who owns that land. Because this, like I mentioned in that video, I'm not going to go into detail, it's always good to find out from the neighbors who owns a particular piece of land without them present, if that makes sense. So if the landowner is not around and you're able to go and find out, then before you get into a final agreement and all this drafting and all these things, to make sure no fraud is done, be sure to do your due diligence. And I'll link that video below so that you can check it out and know how to acquire land, and in particular a lease if you're not a Ugandan. And the process, if it's on former public land, then if you hold a lease actually on former public land, then you can convert this to freehold if you so please, and that the conditions are also not very hard. There are just some forms that you have to fill out and submit these together with passport photographs and pay the necessary fees. And once your application is considered, then you could be granted a freehold. And this is very common, but some people do not know that if you have a lease, you can actually convert it to freehold. So aside from that, for those of us who are not Ugandan and you want to hold land in Uganda, remember the only type of land you can hold is this right here that we're discussing, and that's the leasehold. I hope this is helpful. I hope this is beneficial to you. If you have any questions, be sure to put them in the description. I'll be happy to answer them. I'll be happy to help, and see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.